Besides the local variables that you can create, SQL Server also exposes many global variables. And I don't want you to be confused between these global variables and what other languages might call as a global variable. These global variables are read-only system information variables that you can test to find out information about the environment or about the system or about what's happening with SQL Server at the moment. They're not global variables that you can create that allow you to share information or to have a larger scope than just your local scoped variables. So to go ahead and look at the code, I also want to show you the SP help. And the SP help stored procedure can tell you a ton of information about SQL Server and about specific tables, and there are a number of parameters you can put to SP help to get more information about it. So it's worth spending a little bit of time in books online exploring SP help. It's very useful. Just to execute SP help right here, SP help by itself will give you information about the different tables and different objects that are out there. If you then say SP help and a specific name of an object, it'll give you a lot of information about that object. For example, for a table, here's the owner, here's all the columns, whether or not there's identity, row GUID column, which file group it's on, listing of the indexes, listing of constraints. Just a ton of good information about an object. So let me point out some of the global variables that I find useful. You can execute any of them by just selecting them the way you normally would a regular variable. Fetch status is used inside of cursors. We'll see that later on in this lesson. @error is used quite a bit, testing for errors. During audit trails, it's good to know the server name. Row count. This one is used quite a bit. If you want to just find out when I'm doing an update, when I'm doing a select, how many rows were affected by the last SQL statement, row count will tell you that. And a note about row count and also @error. And we'll probably talk about this again later on in the error checking section, but it's useful to talk about now as far as row count. Row count will give you the number of rows affected by the very previous SQL statement. So you can't do 2 or 3 SQL statements or even one select and then maybe an if statement or something else and then look at row count. It's just the very previous SQL statement. Sometimes in triggers, tran count is useful. That'll tell you how many nested deep you are as far as transactions. And there's a limit to that, 31, and you start having problems. And then @version will give you the actual specific version and service pack level you're at. In addition to SP help and these global variables, SQL Server 2005 also introduced dynamic management views. And I would recommend spending some time exploring the dynamic management views if you really want to figure out what's happening inside of SQL Server, seeing the indexes, seeing what's happening with memory. Microsoft really opened the kimono and revealed a lot of information about what's happening inside of SQL Server with these dynamic management views. So just another note on good information to go find.